What's up, college football fans? A late edition instant reaction show for snaps. Our boy T-Bob is celebrating the massive win LSU had over UCLA. So he unfortunately is not able to make it tonight. But we got JD PicKell from On 3 Sports, a big fan and friend of the show. JD, man, appreciate you joining. Filling in T-Bob's spot, keeping it a little bit more G-rated tonight for all the fans hanging out with us after a great afternoon and night of football.
Yeah, man, you never know, though. Snaps after dark, things get a little – I mean, I've had 2 energy drinks now, so things could be going off the rails a little bit. But what a day, man. This Tennessee game gave us all we wanted and then some when it comes down to cinematic finishes. But no, I'm fired up to be on with you. And probably not literally filling the T-Bob A-Bear shoes, but 9.5 will have to do today.
He's got small hands. He's got small feet, so they're not as big to fill as maybe you would think. So appreciate everyone joining us in the chat. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Send us your thoughts in the chat. We'll be picking out some of it throughout the show and answering those. We're going to hit Tennessee, Oklahoma, USC, Michigan, Arkansas, Auburn, a little bit Utah, Oklahoma State, Missouri, Vandy was a close one. Missouri kicker was about to be missing for a few days, and now he's the hero of the football game. We'll dive into that one a little bit. And then quickly, we're going to look ahead to Georgia, Alabama next week. Just a quick preview because that is obviously one of the biggest games of the college football season, and it's never too early to dive into a game like that. So let's go to Norman first. The game's just about to finish. Oklahoma did not get the 2-point conversion. Tennessee's up 25-15, so pretty much has the game in hand. We're going to get to Jackson Arnold. We're going to get to Oklahoma and now the quarterback controversy that's going to be happening there. But let's start with Tennessee because Tennessee has been one of the most impressive teams this college football season. I think both UTs have been 2 of the most impressive teams in college football. And then you had the balls, JD, to say Nico is one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. I said, let's wait and see. Let's pump the brakes. You said no. Just because you're a quarterback, Aaron, you're an idiot. And he's proven it, man. So your overall thoughts of Tennessee and Nico and the win tonight?
Well, one, I appreciate that, Juice. I think time's going to tell how accurate I was on just calling my shot there with young Nico. And I think the thing for me tonight that was impressive was I was expecting if Tennessee's going to win the football game, it'll be a Nico-centric approach. He'll go for 275, 300, account for 4 total touchdowns, and in a not condescending way at all, he really kind of managed this game. And some of that could be they were dinged up on the offensive line. Some of that could be they just got a different look from the Oklahoma defense that Josh Heupel mentioned going into half. But overall, it didn't take next level Avenger Nico to get a win on the road in Norman. And so the fact that you have that play style in your bag, if you're Tennessee, the fact you can win a game that's played in the 20s, I mean, how refreshing is that for the folks in Knoxville when in 2022, it's okay, how many times can we punt and still find a way to win? They're playing a different style of ball. That front seven is ferocious. I mean, the vibe should be high in Knoxville because of the way you found a way to win this game in Norman.
Well, you have a running back now too. I mean, Dylan Sampson this entire season has been, I mean, hell, we talk so much about quarterbacks for Heisman type seasons. Dylan Sampson's going to be having a Heisman type season at the running back spot if he continues to play like he does for the first 4 games of the season for Tennessee. But you said it right. This team is built differently. And you take 2 teams in the SEC. We're not going to talk too much in depth about Ole Miss in this one, but what has Lane done to build Ole Miss into a more of a legitimate contender this year? Really good, improved offensive line, and he went to the portal and got 2 of the best guys at the defensive line position. What does Tennessee now have? They have an experienced, really pretty darn good offensive line, and they maybe have the best defensive line and depth at the defensive line position. So, all these guys are these offensive geniuses and do all these things on that side of the football. Hell, look at USC. We'll get to that one too. You still have to understand, JD, the game is still won in the trenches. If you can't block and tackle and prevent teams from running the football, you may look sexy and it may be fun for fans to go to, but it's difficult to win championships that way. Is this team, Tennessee, built like a championship team? Are they truly maybe a top 3-4 team in America, not 6, but maybe more top 5?
Yeah, I think that conversation starts after this game because before, if they had gone to Norman and they lose a close one, you say, okay, well, who had they really beaten? Kent State, Chattanooga, NC State, who got the brakes beat off in the day. They didn't even look competitive against Clemson. But I think to your point, the overall like pedigree and overall talent level they have in that front seven. And what you mentioned too, the depth. Like college football has changed now in this 12-team playoff where you want to win the whole darn thing, which I think Tennessee fans, the expectations are starting to grow in terms of what they want to accomplish in the postseason. You're going to have to win 17 game or play a 17-game season, play a season. And so the fact that we're, knock on wood, going to get to November here, and Tennessee's still going to have guys they can roll in the defensive line when they play the Alabamas in October, when they play the Georgias, like that, I think is just such a major differentiating factor to what we both spoke to. It's a different Tennessee outfit, and the roster is reflecting that right now.
Well, and Nico, first true away game, not easy at all. I remember my first true away game was at South Carolina. Good defense, loud environment. This was prime time. Herb Street and the boys are there. All the excitement, Oklahoma's first SEC game, all this stuff that you can kind of, overbuild the game too much as a quarterback, especially a young quarterback, and then go out there and maybe have a couple of mistakes. And he looked cool, calm, collective, making the right decisions. Yeah, a couple of times fumbled the ball and some hits, in the backfield when he was able to locate some blitzes. But overall, to me, you walk away from this saying Nico went on the road, hostile environment, really good defense, great defensive-minded head coach, and played efficient football, like you said, and came out there with a dub. So gives and should give Tennessee fans even more confidence going down the road. So, Tennessee, I walk away continuing to say one of the most impressive teams to start the football season. Them, Texas, the battle for the true UT is still going to be ongoing all year long. JD, let's up at Oklahoma. It's been a rough start to the season for the offense. They've not looked good. Offensive line is not good. The receivers have been average. Jackson Arnold has been inconsistent. And then tonight, going against Tennessee, all of it essentially came crashing down. And we, Oklahoma fans, truly got to see just how far behind this offense is and the struggles that are probably going to be happening for the majority of the season.
Yeah, and I think you and I were talking about this before we got on the air, like, the frustrating thing if you're an Oklahoma fan is Jackson Arnold comes in, he's billed as the next guy, right? The next guy in Norman, 5-star quarterback. And I understand whenever you're the quarterback, you're going to take the heat when things don't go well. And Michael Hawkins doing a great job kind of giving them what they need and maybe providing a change-up pitch with his legs. But, like, I feel a little bit robbed in the sense that we haven't actually even got to see if Jackson Arnold can play to that 5-star caliber because my guy's got like 1.5 Mississippis before he's got James Pierce or someone else in his lap. And so I understand there's a major part of it where you just kind of have to make it work for the quarterback. You have to be the differentiating factor, go above the X's and O's, as they like to say. But overall, like, I don't think that this is like an accurate depiction, or at least I don't feel like we've got enough that we can see yet from a great sample size of who Jackson Arnold's going to be long term. So
no,
if you're an Oklahoma fan.
Yeah, well, it definitely is. I know that the big talk I saw on social media and the people in the chat right now too is like, oh, you got rid of Dylan Gabriel, who was so good last year, and this is what you wanted to essentially move him on front. Like, listen, like Jackson Arnold's still a very talented quarterback. He's very green. He's young. Like you alluded to, there's a lot more that needs to be seen. But like, is he the right guy for Oklahoma right now that has a brand new offensive line? Not great guys on the outside. Just overall, there's not a lot of support around the quarterback. So you have to have a guy that is maybe a little bit more Michael Hawkins Jr.-esque. And Jackson has that, though, which is a little bit interesting. Like, I came into this game saying if Oklahoma's going to have a chance, Jackson Arnold's going to have to do it with his legs because him being a pocket passer in this offense against Tennessee's defense line is just not going to get it done. And that played out perfectly. Tennessee rattled him early. Tennessee confused him. Tennessee got after him. Tennessee hit him. Negative 21 yards rushing. Like, that is not the type of game that he needed and Oklahoma needed him to have. But I did like the Michael Hawkins Jr. kid, though, JD. Like, he came in there, was kind of like, we were joking, like, he looked like a freshman. There's no worse feeling than walking into a game as a true freshman, primetime football game, a defense that hasn't given up a touchdown in 18 freaking quarters, and you're like, hey, buddy, go win us the fucking football game. And you're just like, I guess at that point, you're just like, screw it. You know what? Like, there are no expectations. I'm just going to wing it. And he looked like he was winging it. He was having a good time. He made some incredible throws, 11 of 18, 132, a touchdown. That freaking flip that wasn't called a touchdown was awesome. Like, is there and should there be a quarterback controversy in Oklahoma?
Well, I think to what we're speaking about with Jackson Arnold, and you probably have a better gauge for this, Aaron, like how do you turn around and tell Jackson Arnold, hey, we have faith in you. Hey, you're our guy going
Yeah.
forward. I know we just benched you at halftime of the Tennessee game because you had some things not go your way. He has the fumble, he has the bad pick, and then the weird lateral situation. Like, I don't know how after week 4, you look at him and say, hey, you're our guy when we play LSU. You're our guy going in the Red River. Like, and I've never played quarterback at the level that he's playing at or you're playing at, but I would have to imagine, like, psychologically, that would mess with me. That would make me play even worse. And so I don't want to say you burn the boats on the Jackson Arnold experience, but there is something to be said for the way the offense looked with Michael Hawkins and the extra electricity he had on the ground. Like, that might be what you need if you're Oklahoma here going forward to be successful.
We will see. I know the way he played probably earned a lot of respect from the coaches, the fans, and his players because he played ball. So I'm not saying like Jackson doesn't play like that. Like Jackson is someone that, he runs the football. He's laying the boom a little bit too much. So I think both those guys are not afraid to lay it on the line for their team and to move the change and get in the end zone, no doubt about it. But like Michael earned a lot of respect across the country tonight. So it will be interesting to see what Oklahoma does going forward. Quick chat before we move on to the next game from Brody. Aaron, what does Tennessee have to do to make the SEC championship game is what they're doing sustainable? I think it is 100%. I think Tennessee right now, like if Tennessee in Alabama was tomorrow, I would pick Tennessee to win the football game. Ooh. And it's going to be in Knoxville. Last time they played there, they won. Yeah. Tennessee was winning at halftime last year with Joe Milton at quarterback. This is a better Tennessee football team. We're going to learn a lot about Alabama next week, a lot about Alabama. So maybe that thought's going to change. But you look at their schedule, Arkansas is going to be a good game. They get a bye before that. Florida. But like you should win every game. And then bam, all of a sudden, November 16th, you're on the road against Georgia. But even 11-1 Tennessee probably going to be in Atlanta. So definitely can do that. No doubt about it. All right. Let's get to the next game. USC, Michigan. Awesome football game. USC got punched in the mouth early. Michigan looked like, hey, man, we got Orji at quarterback. Our mentality is now flipped to we're back to physical style of football. We're going to pound it down you. And the whole mindset of the football team just looked different. And they dominated the first half. USC comes scrapping back in the second half, makes it a ball game. And Michigan goes down there and gets a big run and ends up winning it late there in Ann Arbor. Let's start with Michigan first. How big and important was this one for them to not completely fall off the face of the earth after winning a national championship last year?
Oh, I think it was huge. I think it was huge because, I mean, if they lose that game, Aaron, they're looking at the Oregon game and the Ohio State game, and you're like, all right, if we won't even have a chance to sniff the playoff, like we gotta go 2-0 here. We gotta go 2-0 against these two. And at this point, like you probably still would like to go 2-0 in that stretch. It's never okay to lose to Ohio State, as we know with that rivalry. But I mean, a 10-2 Michigan team, if they can find their way in, like find their way to that record, like they're in the dance, is my opinion when it comes to how tough the Big Ten is. But I mean, I'd have to imagine too, from a confidence perspective, to know that we can roll out there, throw for 32 yards, and still find a way to win the football game against one of the best offensive minds in college. Like what? I mean, at that point, you're just like, we are titanium. We are invincible with that game plan. If they have that on the ground, now granted, USC is probably not going to be, quite up to par with what they see against Oregon and Ohio State, but just to win a game in that kind of fashion, it was the most Michigan-esque of Michigans that we've seen to this point in 2024.
And defensively, real quick, that was the defensive line that I've been expecting all season. Like that was for like to me the first time we were like, okay, Michigan lost all this talent on the football team a year ago. They lost their quarterback and offensive line and guys on all three levels on the defense, but they still got really good dudes up front. Like this defense line is still pretty damn talented. Like go play NCAA football, go play EA Sports. Like that D line is nasty. And Texas whooped them up. I mean, and credit to Texas too. A couple weeks ago, like that is, right now looks like the best offense line in all of college football, the way that they've played through the first part of this football season. But for Michigan to literally knock the crap out of Miller Moss, I felt like every time Miller Moss took a drop, JD, he was getting knocked down. Every single time he was on his back, he was in duress, he was having to move. For how well Miller Moss has played this season, he played well in this football game too. Don't get me wrong, but man, it is not a fun life when you're dealing with that crowd and that crowd noise and getting hit every single play. So can that defense, along with this run game, like, is that good enough? Like at the end of the day, like, was this just a perfect storm of events of like, we're at home, backs against the wall? Everyone has to play well because we know the limitations of Alex Orji at the quarterback spot. Like, is this truly sustainable what you saw from Michigan today?
I think it all depends on expectations. I think, like, if you're saying, hey, can we just get to the college football playoff? Like, if that is our new national championship for this year and we're happy going 10-2, that's something to aspire for. I feel a little bit like you and I were talking about with Michael Hawkins Jr. Change up pitch. There's not a lot of tape on Alex Orji running like a full offense. USC. I mean, we talked a lot about USC and how much they improved on defense, but we go back and watch that LSU game. They're still giving up like 4.5 yards a carry. So you're still holding your breath a little bit there. I think the next couple of weeks are going to tell us a lot about Michigan, with now the book being out on Alex Orji and what they're going to do offensively. I still think they have to find some way to loosen up the box a little bit. Yes. Like I think, again, in the Big Ten, they're going to have too many safeties running downhill and just blowing things up, and they're going to play better D lines than USC, to call a spade a spade. So I don't think it's super sustainable, but if you can evolve from this, if this is the jumping off point and we got version 2.0 and 3.0 down the line, maybe things start to, trend upwards for Michigan.
I'll say this. I don't think there is a version 2.0 or 3.0, to be honest. Like, I think we've seen enough of Alex Orji to know that, like, there is no magical, he just needs more reps and he's going to become a better passer. He's just not a good thrower of the football, plain and simple. Like, there are guys that you can watch and say, like, he's got talent. There's a couple things that need to get corrected fundamentally or whatever it may be that he can develop into a good quarterback. Alex Orji is not a good thrower of the football. Getting reps and more reps is not going to transform him into some superstar or even a what I would consider even some sort of consistent threat throwing the football. This is who they are. They're just have to grind it out and win games like this one this afternoon. So they got it done, man. That was a big win. USC, though, I'll say this, to get punched in the mouth in the first half, to not play great, but then to kind of come back, like, it really, like, you talk about Alex Orji not being able to transform. USC has transformed. Like, I was impressed, and maybe Michigan isn't great, so maybe this loss looks even worse in 4 or 5 weeks from now. But I have a lot of respect for what USC has done to start this season and what they look like today on both sides of the football, and obviously what Miller Moss did. Like, are they a contender in the Big Ten? Like maybe some of us thought a week ago, when like, okay, is USC number 2 or 3 behind Ohio State and Oregon? Maybe, maybe not. But I still walk away saying, like, the Trojans they're real this year, man.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm curious about is how do they look after this? Because I think you have some confidence after the LSU game and you shut out Utah State, and now I think there is. I'm not saying this is going to happen. There's potential now for those guys to say, well, we got run on for darn near 300 yards and kind of start to revert back. So how they're able to handle, the failure as much as how they handle the success, I think is going to tell us a lot. But it's very interesting. Like, this feels like a more edgy USC team than we've seen in the past. Like Miller Moss, the dude who stayed, and it looked like for all the world he was going to be, having to transfer because they were going to bring somebody in. And then everyone's talked bad about USC's defense for the last, feels like, 3 years. Like, it feels like they have a chip on their shoulder of sorts, and I think this will only add to it. I cannot wait to watch them against the Nebraskas of the world, the Penn States of the world, which I know we'll get here in October. So, yeah, I think they are evolved. How much is going to be really, really interesting when we get to those games.
Yeah, I agree. Big win by Michigan, though. I think we all sit back and say Michigan get to 3-1, 1-0 in the conference play. USC 0-1. It was pretty sweet seeing both those uniforms on the field together, though.
Oh, it's cool.
Like seeing Michigan in those unis and then USC in their unis, like probably 2 of my favorite uniforms in all of college football in a Big Ten game in Ann Arbor. Like, it was weird to see it first, but then you sit back like, damn, it just looked good. It just looked good.
And the CBS broadcast too, with like the SEC on CBS Music, and you got Gary Danielson. I was like, I gotta like recalibrate my brain to all this. But once I kind of settled in, like third, fourth quarter, they were doing shots of the crowd. I was like, this is I can get on board with this. This is cool.
I will say this, obviously being an ESPN man, I was like, you know what? The new music we're good. It sounds great. We're all good. But then watching the game today, because it was probably my first CBS game I've watched the season, and hearing the music, I was like, oh, I miss it. I miss that jingle. Oh, I miss it. Oh, that 3:30, that
Totally
music.
right.
It's hard to get it out of our bloods as college football fans, and obviously knowing that 3:30 spot and what CBS did for a long time in the SEC. All right, let's move on to the next game. Ugly football game in the SEC, in the plains or on the plains, whatever they say there in Auburn, Alabama. Arkansas gets a really, like I said, ugly win, 24-14. Arkansas takes down Auburn, and man, Auburn has issues. Arkansas had some issues. A lot of turnovers in this football game by all the quarterbacks who got in there and played. But I had Arkansas 2 weeks ago, JD, and I sit back and say, like, man, that's a good football team. It's a good defense. It's a great running back. Like, I love Jackson. I think some pretty good receivers. It all comes down to Taylon Green, like how much he progresses. And like the difference between Taylon and Orji, like I've seen enough of Taylon to say he can be a good passer. Mm-hmm. Does it happen this year, at the end of the year, or next year? I don't know. But at some point, like he's going to be pretty darn special. We've seen enough good stuff from him. On the other side, Payne Thorne and Hank Brown, Hugh just completely whiffed this offseason at the quarterback spot, unfortunately, for Auburn Tigers. And it's going to be a long week there for them in Auburn. So let's start with the winning team first. Sam Pittman on the hot seat heading into the season. Shoulda, coulda, would have won the Oklahoma State game a couple weeks ago. They didn't, gave that one up, but still an awesome win on the road, SEC win to get to 3-1. Just your overall thoughts of Arkansas to start the season off.
Just so gritty. Like they really should have beat Oklahoma State on the road. Going back to the woulda, shoulda, coulda. I mean, that's another good football team in Stillwater, and they should. I mean, they let them off the hook if we're being real. But going back to your point about Taylon Green, like, dude, he took shot after shot after shot from that Auburn defense, and I kept waiting. I'm like, okay, sure, like this is the time where he's gonna like limp off to the sideline. He'll take a beat, but he just kept coming back for more. And the play where he like reversed field, hucked it deep, his receiver makes a great play in the end zone for him, and Arkansas is able to pull ahead, I think, on that play. Just had a crazy grit about themselves from the quarterback all the way through. And it's tough to quantify that and have that show up in a box score, but watching that game, that's what it felt like. Like Taylon Green and that offense, they were going to find a way. And then on the opposite side, I know we're talking Auburn here, but Auburn was going to find a way to give it away, which is not always how it is, I know, but watching the game, that's how it felt to me. And I mean, Sam Pittman was a dead man walking in SEC media days, and here they are sitting at 3-1.
It is amazing. Just that I'm glad for it, too. I think all of us who cover college football, those that know Sam Pittman, love Sam Pittman. I don't think anyone wants to fire that dude. So I think everyone's real deep down inside cheering that Arkansas continues on the path mandate, but it would look good to see them at 4-0. Obviously, that's Arkansas. The big talk from this is going to be Auburn. It's Hugh Freeze. From the entire offseason, we said, why not at least take a quarterback in the portal? You got money. You got a head coach who is developed quarterbacks pretty decently. Could you have gotten a Taylon Green? Could you have gotten a Cam Ward? Could you have got some of these other guys? I don't know what those discussions were, but you were comfortable enough to say, we like Payne Thorne. He's going to be our guy. And has not looked good. Did not look good a week ago versus Cal. You make the transition. You put Hank Brown in there, and then now he goes and throws three interceptions in this game. 4 total picks. I know the one for Payne wasn't really his fault, but still 4 picks thrown by Auburn in this football game. This is a quarterback controversy now of like, I don't know if I want either of these guys. Like, who's option 3 for Auburn? Like, do you stick with one or the two of them? Do you go back to Payne, or like what should you do?
I mean, the thing that's baffling to me is that they're still so subpar offensively, because you look around them, and last year you could make the excuse of, hey, Payton Thorne didn't get spring football. Your tight end is great, but he's not supposed to be your leading receiver. Offensively, we heard all offseason long how there's disconnect between the coordinator and head coach, and they're pulling in different directions. So everything lined up on paper this year for Auburn to be much better. So I go to SEC Media Days. I give my thoughts on that. And then today, after Auburn has a 4-turnover performance, I get an update on my phone. Old Takes Exposed has retweeted your July, whatever it was, tweet. And I was like, yeah, like that. Hey, Chargers the game. Like there's more where that came from. But I mean, to answer your question, like it feels like it should be Peyton Thorne. I mean, you kind of saw Hank Brown in that first half, and Peyton Thorne at least provides the mobile element. Maybe you just double down on the run game and then you sneak in some more. Like, I don't know what the answer is there. I know there's a lot of people, making a lot more money in Auburn, Alabama than me to make those decisions, but the gut says Peyton Thorne. I was impressed seeing him come off the bench and deal after getting benched last week. But yeah, it's a very tricky situation. And the fact they got Oklahoma coming to town, who's also kind of, limping into that game. The storylines around that one game will be.
Oh my God. I didn't realize that next week that it is the battle of the four quarterbacks for Auburn and Oklahoma next week. You may be seeing just a heavy rotation of all of them, and then five turnovers. So this is a stat category for this game. Auburn 5 turnovers, Arkansas 2. Time of possession 36 and a half or 36 and a half to 23 and a half for Auburn. Just a recipe for a disaster for an offensive mind like Hugh Freeze, who's obviously well respected in this league and other leagues for what he's done. And now all of a sudden you start looking at Auburn and their schedule going forward. You said Oklahoma, Georgia, Missouri, at Kentucky, A&M, Alabama late in the season. To me, this is a team that has a quarterback issue. This is a team that has not looked great on the defensive side of the football either for some of these games. Hell, Florida State stalled out Cal, and you gave up 21 points to Cal at home. And I know a lot has to do with some turnovers that Payne Thorne gave up in that football game a couple weeks ago. But, it's not like Arkansas had this amazing performance and you still gave up 24 points with those 2 turnovers. So a lot of things have to get better for the Auburn Tigers. Can it get done at some point? Do you have to just stick with the quarterback and ride with it? I think these are all things that Hugh Freeze is going to have to decide. But I just think, JD, when I step back and say, they're just not a good team this year, I think that's the more surprising thing, because Hugh did go into the portal, clean up some aspects. They've recruited pretty well since he got there. Where is the disconnect for why is this team, not just quarterback, but everywhere else, not playing well?
I think it does probably. I don't want to oversimplify it, but to me, like I look at the defense. Defense looked like they, not played lights out, because obviously you allow too many points and losing the football game, but like defense kept answering the call to action, forcing turnovers. Offensive line's probably not up to par to where you would like it to be, but I look at the skill positions and I'm like, okay, Cam Coleman, he's going to be an NFL player when it's his time. Rivaldo Fairweather, he's going to be an NFL player. Keandre Lambert-Smith. So I'm like, okay, a lot of NFL players over there. So I keep going. And maybe it's like the college football fan syndrome in me, seeing the quarterback making a poor play and saying, hey, it's your fault. But at some point in time, it's like this roster feels way too talented to not be able to maximize it because of what you have at quarterback. So I think you look at quarterback, and I think you look at, in some respects, like, hey, offensively, how do we work with what we have here? Because whatever we're doing, clearly the person that we have behind center now on 2 separate occasions can't get it done. And I'll add one more thing here. If you're an Auburn fan, the frustrating thing here is this was supposed to be the trajectory year, right? You go win, call it 8 football games. You go and pitch that on the recruiting trail. You go flip a Deuce Knight. You go land X, Y, and Z high profile player. And then that's okay, now we kind of have this thing rolling. We got some momentum. It looks like right now they have, I don't know if regressed, but at the very best, like stayed the same. And I know it's only 4 games, but like that's the exact opposite of what everyone in Auburn had hoped for this year.
Yeah, it does not look much improved anywhere, unfortunately, for Auburn. And with that schedule, it could be a long, long season for the Tigers. All right, let's get to our next one. Interesting game. Missouri wins in overtime against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, the Diego at quarterback. If you haven't watched him yet this season, just go watch him, because that guy is one tough SOB at the quarterback position. Really efficient once again this game, both on the ground and through the air. Missouri's 7, and Missouri has a really gettable schedule. And I thought Brady Cook has looked good. Nate Noel has been an incredible get this offseason. Marcus Carroll didn't have a great game, but he's also a talented running back there as well. You got really, really talented receivers. You had a good offensive line. Like, why is Missouri not dominating right now? I know the first couple of games they did, and it was against Murray State and Buffalo. But like, BC was a big challenge. BC's a good team, but like That was a big challenge. Vanderbilt, now it's a 2-game sample size of you're at home and you're struggling to beat Vanderbilt and BC. Should we be worried about how good Missouri is and if they truly are a contender for the playoffs?
So I personally have been a little bit cool on Missouri just because of all they lost last year. And then looking at what happened for them last year in terms of close games that broke their way, they had 4 games they won by 1 score.
Mm-hmm.
Then they lose their DC to LSU. They lose 40% production or something crazy on defense. They lose Cody Schrader. And so all those things, I think Missouri could kind of find their stride and start to gel a little bit more with this team they have in 2024. But I think they are in a lot of ways showing like that they're missing those key pieces from what allowed them to elevate a season ago. So the offense is still great. Obviously, I love Brady Cook. I think Luther Burden has a case for being, one of the best, if not the best offensive player in college football. But there's a lot of pieces, obviously, Aaron, as you know, that are yet to totally come together. And I think we're seeing the reasons or seeing that show itself against a Boston College and a Vanderbilt. And we'll see it going forward here. I think they have a bye and they go to A&M. And that's not going to be a easy task by any stretch of the imagination.
I will say this, like you are gaining confidence by winning some of these close battles. And to me, outsider looking in, I have a lot of confidence in Brady Cook. And I know that heading into last season, I remember because I had their first game of the season, there was a lot of talk about like, we don't want Brady to be our guy. Brady's not our guy. It was the guy that was the pitcher and on the baseball team too. And Brady had a really good year last year. But to me, the confidence that he gained from a very successful season to now watching him play this season, like seeing last week down versus BC, hey, coach, give me the football, watch me go do my thing. Like, I think you have a guy that can win you big-time football games in the SEC. You have a running back that can create balance within the offense. You have big-time playmakers like Luther and Theo and Mookie that can make plays on the outside as well. So, like, you may not dominate games because the defense is not going to be as good as they were last year, but you have an offense and you have a quarterback that I think have the it factor that can get you big-time wins and can keep you in ball games and can in fourth quarters drive down the field and get you a touchdown. And overtime, when your butt's probably more tired than Vanderbilt's because you didn't think the game was going to be close as it is, still finds a way to get touchdowns to Luther Burden to get to the second overtime. So I trust Brady. I trust this offense. I think the defense will progress a little bit, but I would like to see them start dominating a little bit more against average competition. I think they're going to get the opportunity in 2 weeks for Texas A&M, a good football team, not a great football team, but a good football team on the road. To me, that's going to be the first true sign of, is Missouri a contender or pretender when it comes to the college football playoff? So anything more for that game you got?
Only thing I was going to say is kind of speaking to your point there. I know NIL and the professionalization of college sports has caused us to view college football in a much more NFL centric sort of, or NFL lens on the whole game. But it's cliche, but still the 18 to 22-year-olds, you wonder if, hey, maybe that Vanderbilt logo, when you watch it, on the Jumbotron walking into the stadium, doesn't necessarily get the juices flowing quite as much as a Texas when they roll into Nashville. So you wonder if maybe there's some of that going on. They turn on the switch, find a way to win the ball games, like beat Boston College, beat Vandy. But I'm curious to see how they trend. Definitely against some better logos there for the folks in Columbia.
Yeah. All right. Before we go, we'll probably hit more of all the games with T-Bob either tomorrow or Monday as we dive into the tape and catch up on some of the big ones that we did miss. But since we have you here, I do want to hit on next week's big time matchup. Georgia on the road going to Tuscaloosa. Game day, the number 2 versus, I think it was Alabama 3 or 4. Number 4, Alabama Crimson Tide, both coming off a bye week, getting ready for what will be probably one of the best matchups of the college football season. I'm going to throw it to you first. What are your big thoughts? We're a week out from the football game, but as you, I'm sure all of us have thought about this game a million times this offseason and then started to prepare what it's going to look like. What are you going to be looking for? What are you going to be talking about on all three all week?
Well, really quickly, I will self-correct. Missouri plays Oklahoma, not Texas at the crib, just so everyone watching isn't confused. Speaking of the Georgia-Alabama game, though, the Jalen Milroe factor in the SEC title game a season ago. Like,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I know Georgia was dinged up, but I was looking at, and you look at the rosters, pretty evenly matched to some degree. But you know, at the end of the day, I was like, okay, matchups should favor Georgia here. Like, at the end of the day, I know it's Atlanta, I know it's Saban, I know all that, but like, it should favor Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jalen Milroe just put on the cape.
Yep.
Didn't show up in the box score as much, but situationally, it was just like, hey, I am the best player on the field right now. Georgia playing some young linebackers. How does that story go this time? Is his legs and mobility still a differentiating factor? Is Georgia showing up the way that they, showed up last year against Kentucky, or is it the way they showed up last week against Kentucky? So how do they bounce back from their poor performance a week ago? But yeah, it's gonna be fun. That feels like the overall blanket statement I keep throwing on this thing. Like, It's gonna be fun. Who wins? Us as college football fans.
Yes. I want to go to a couple matchups real quick, and then I want to get some of the matchups you're looking for. But to me, it is, and it's not even Jalen or Carson necessarily that I'm looking at. It's what receiving core can create some explosive plays. Because I think Georgia's receiving core has yet to really make that big move this season of like, we are better than we were a year ago. I think Alabama, the Ryan Williams kid is pretty darn special. And I'm not dogging him. And I know there's going to be Alabama fans and like, oh, you're only seeing this because Georgia guy. The majority of his touchdowns, he's been wide ass open. He's been wide ass open.
Yeah.
Like it was DeBoer scheming things where he's wide ass open. So he's 17 years old, going against probably the best defensive backfield that he's ever gone against. Is he going to get that wide open? I don't think so. So, like, is he truly ready in this big moment to be the superstar that we all know he's going to be and maybe he is right now? I think that is still TBD. I think the other receivers for Alabama have to step up. It's like, which receiving core can play big? Which receiving core can create some separation and get down the field? And then flip it to the other side. Obviously, Alabama struggled a little bit on the secondary, some youth back there. Can Georgia take advantage of that? And Georgia really hasn't been tested in the secondary, JD. Like, you think they could be good. Obviously, Malachi back there, but they're very young everywhere else. Bunch of 4 and 5 stars, just like Alabama has a bunch of 4 and 5 stars as well, but very, very young. So which defensive backfield makes the big mistake? Which receiving core makes the big play? It's kind of what I'm looking for in this when it comes to like which matchups could determine who wins this football game.
Yeah, 100%. And to your point there, I wonder too how much Kalen DeBoer has gotten into the bag. Like the comp I keep making on our show is game plans are kind of like packing a suitcase. And I think up until the Wisconsin game, Alabama was packing like some basketball shorts, maybe a pair of slides, nice t-shirt. Wisconsin game, a little bit more dressed up. For Georgia, though, I'm sure it'll be like, hey, bring out the tuxedo of game plans. Like everything that we're going to need, like we're having it heavily packed into this bag. It's not getting through TSA. And so I wonder if it's a situation where that gives Georgia some problems. Like when you spoke to the DeBoer scheming guys open, I wonder how effective that is against a Georgia defense that I'm sure will pack a heavy game plan as well. So that chess game between Schumann and Kirby and DeBoer and Shepard, like that to me is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that one. I do love the fact that what they're doing with Jalen this year, just like letting him run and being just that ultimate athlete. Hey, we're gonna 10 to 15 plays that is just straight quarterback run. Let him go be the fastest guy on the football field and go do his thing. That's gonna be fascinating to watch. Early thoughts on a winner on this one? Are you leaning one way? Yeah, I don't even know what Vegas has this game right now, but I'm sure it's pretty damn close.
Yeah, I think it's 3.5. I forget which way it was. It was leaning when I checked it last. But it's tough because the last time we got to see Georgia, like they're in a dogfight, no pun intended, with Kentucky, and it's a 1-point game. And like, if you had given me Alabama's most recent game being the USF game, you're like, yeah, maybe that like gives me a little bit of cause for concern. O-line's dinged up. With it being in Bryant-Denny and what I saw from Georgia, I'm a little bit concerned about the Dogs. I picked Georgia to go wire to wire this year, picked them to win the whole darn thing. I don't think this game changes that national title pick. Right now, though, as we go to sleep on Sunday night, I lean Bama, Aaron. I lean Bama and Jalen Milroe just ever so slightly.
I'll say this. You just said like it doesn't change in your mind the national championship chances. When you look at both these teams and their schedules going forward, I hate to say like this is a must win because it is a 12-team playoff this year. And it's not the 4-team, it's not the BCS era. But if Georgia loses this, they still got Ole Miss, they still got Texas, and guess what? They still got Tennessee as well. On top of that, if Alabama loses this, they still got to go to Tennessee. They got to play Missouri. They have to go to LSU, and then obviously the tricky game versus Auburn at the end of the season. So like we say like, oh, losers still in control of getting the playoffs. Like, yeah, 100%. But like both schedules for both teams kind of sucks. So you don't want to lose a game this early in the season. I don't care how good you are, how confident you are down the stretch with your opponents, because it is a gauntlet for both these teams the rest of the season, which is, as you alluded to earlier, great for us fans because there's going to be some exciting games that have playoff implications in week 5, in week 7, in week 8, and obviously in week 12 and 13, and so on and so on and so on. So, but it's going to be an awesome game. It is going to be a 4-quarter absolute dog fest. And T-Bob and I talked about this last week. Kirby Smart, probably the best coach in college football. Kalen DeBoer is probably 2.
Yeah. I mean, what is he? 100, he was 104 and 12 going into the year, or something ridiculous like that. It's like, okay, don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think you luck your way into 104 and 12.
No. Well, I appreciate everyone joining us tonight. Appreciate you, JD, for joining us. You can catch him. Are you doing your show tomorrow, or does it come out Monday? What's your schedule for the week so people can catch you as well?
Yeah. So tomorrow morning, we just do a bunch of like segments. So we're reacting to games. We don't have a live show, but we'll do a bunch of content on the YouTube channel starting early tomorrow morning, and we'll have a full length podcast for you. So yeah, we'll be getting after it, reacting to everything that was week 4. And man, always a pleasure to jump on with you, brother.
I appreciate you. Appreciate everyone joining us right now. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. T-Bob and I will be back on Monday. I'm going to be doing some quarterback breakdown shows tonight and tomorrow morning. So go check those out. Mostly SEC focused because of some things, but we will get those out in the next couple of days. So I hope you guys enjoyed those and shared them as well, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. We will talk soon. See y'all.